Okay, committee staff. I have a bit of an echo. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you. I'm calling this meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. I'd like to confirm that all members are present, and we do have, with the exception, I apologize, of Councillor Edwards, who did give his regrets, but I do confirm we have quorum. I'd like to also confirm that our CAO, clerk, and members of our senior management team are here and present. Also, as an ongoing reminder to the public that if you have public input on our agenda, we invite that at the following email address, tmlpubliccomment@muskokalakes.ca. Correspondence was received and circulated in a supplementary agenda pursuant to section 7.2.1 of Council Procedure Bylaw 2023-089. This is for item 6, public comments were received from the Muskoka Lakes Association. Item 10B, the draft special event bylaw amendment. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. At this point, I'd like to ask committee if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Mayor Kelley.
Thank you, and through you, I will be recusing on item 9D because I am an owner of an adjoining property to the subject matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, any other disclosures? Okay, seeing none. Just a quick explanation that motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. And for voting, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk, but this is not considered a recorded vote. Fantastic. So thank you very much, and welcome to Port Curling here on this beautiful April day. We have two delegations, each of which would have 5 minutes presentations, up to 5 minutes for us to listen to. And at this point, I'd like to ask, is item 5A, Mr. Olsen or Mr. Reese here to discuss 5A? No. Okay. Committee, if this presentation comes on a little bit later, I will look to staff to help me if they want to participate online. I will allow that a little bit later in today's presentation. They may just be having some technical challenges getting onto the site. So moving on to item 5B then, I would welcome to the podium, Ms. Rae.
Good morning, and thank you.
Committee, is the staff, is the microphone on? Thank you. Okay, Ms. Rae, welcome. As a reminder, we do have 5 minutes, and after your presentation, I will ask committee to have, if they have any questions for your presentation. And as we discussed, as a group, we will be talking about the presentation later on in today's agenda.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to express the views of the Bala Curling Club. We are here to address the Muskoka Lakes Arena Review Plan, and more specifically, the Community Needs Review. This is a massive plan involving a large amount of money. We believe this arena redevelopment should include more than hockey, skating, pickleball, and potentially swimming. Why not the recreational needs of the curlers as well? Bala Curling Club has been around for over 100 years. It provides an opportunity to community members to gather and enjoy physical and social activity. Our members span from children to seniors, and we have social as well as curling members. These members come from Bala, and also many other communities, including Walker's Point, MacTier, and Milford Bay. This is a view of the outside of our curling rink, as well as the parking lot. And this is the inside of the clubhouse overlooking the ice. Yep. Okay. Nope. That was right. Bala Curling Club is very involved in the community, and as a member of the Muskoka Lakes Chamber of Commerce, we hosted a business after hours event last September. For 30 years, we've had a booth at the Jaspin Park for the Saturday evening of Cranberry Festival, serving drinks and entertainment. The Curling Club puts a float in the Bala Santa Claus Parade, and we participated in the inaugural Bala Rocks March Break, where there were several venues each day of March break to give a boost for this time of year, and it was very successful. The club also offers private rentals for family and corporate gatherings, and during the long winter months, the club is a social haven to its members. As a refresher of the Township of Muskoka Lakes Master Plan approved in 2022, the following are the vision and mission statements. Opportunities to leverage partnerships in facilities and programming, the need for a plan that affects change, not status quo, recognize and leverage partnerships, embrace public and private partnerships for investment in recreation. And one of the recommendations coming out of the master plan is to actively consider the opportunities of shared recreational assets, membership-based or otherwise. We ask that the Township of Muskoka Lakes include the Bala Curling Club in this process. We would be honored to have a seat at the table and be considered in a private-public partnership in this far-reaching project. A new arena complex, in whatever form it takes, will be a decision felt for decades. Recreation is integral for a vibrant and healthy community for all. We should dream big and take the time to get this right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, committee, are there any questions? Councillor Bosemuth, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. I was interested in how many members you have, how often your facilities are used, and what is the general level of activity associated with your club?
Through you. Currently, we have 60 members. Pre-COVID, we were around 80, and in previous years, we've been well over 100 members. We are active 5 days a week, as well as when we host bonspiels, it's probably about once a month on the weekends, and then we are renting out to gatherings as well.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. I guess, Joanne, first, there was a question coming here. As I understand it from some of your other members, it's a very well-run club. This isn't you coming with your hands out. This is asking for a seat at the table, which I think is great. And I guess my question is, we saw your building. What would your intent be were this to all come to fruition, and you would be, there would be a curling facet to, whatever complex or whatever is built in Bala and or Port Carling? What would your purpose be for that building? Question.
Okay, thank you.
Through you. So you're asking, I just want to clarify, you're asking what would the purpose be for the current building? The current building. So we would like to be part of the committee to figure out what would be going forward in terms of a building complex, and then decide what to do with our current rink. So it would be, you know, decided once we have something concrete. So nothing has been discussed currently. Perhaps it could be a pickleball site, who knows?
Thank you. Councillor Kent.
I was just wondering, and I don't recollect, this may just be my oversight, were any of your members surveyed when we did the community survey on needs? It looks like we may have overlooked a group here, that's all I was wondering.
So the
Oh,
question,
not obviously, not intentionally.
okay, so the question is during the recreation master plan, was the curling club consulted?
Through you,
Yes.
it's unfortunate that there was a miscommunication and we were not considered or consulted.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much
Thank you.
and have a great day.
You as well.
Take care. Okay, we are now moving on to item 6A. I'd like to welcome Director Becking. Sorry, 7A. My apologies, 7A.
Here to advise you that it's pretty hard on our road system. I would also just a quick overview.
Director Becking, just one moment. The question is the mic on?
Okay.
Thank you.
You need me to start over?
If you,
26 Bayshore Drive, Bath, Ontario.
thank you. There are people watching, so I think if you could start it. Thank you.
Good morning. I think you will all agree that we've had a rather unusual winter compared to certainly my experience over the last 5 years. I'm here to advise you that it's been extremely hard on our road system. And I would suggest to you that this is a bit of a foreshadowing of what we can expect into the future. Next slide. Thanks. Just a quick recap. Currently, we have 133 kilometers of gravel roads. We've experienced some pretty severe breakup this past winter. We've had over 8 kilometers of road that has completely failed. And there's probably another 40 kilometers plus that is in poor condition and has failed. Now, these numbers are somewhat dated, so I can tell you that there has been further increases in these numbers. This is not including our seasonally maintained and unmaintained municipal roads. And we are in receipt of a number of complaints relative to roads in that category as well. Permanent residences are being affected. This is not seasonal or not exclusively restricted to seasonal properties. We have people back there, and as a result, it's going to affect our ability to deliver services both on a standard basis as well as an emergency basis. So this is going to have an effect for police, ambulance, fire, and so forth. To date, we've expended over $50,000 of unbudgeted funds just to put a Band-Aid on things. And the cost is is increasing. Now that 50,000 is simply materials only. There is no allowance in that number for equipment or staff resources. Next slide, please. The next couple of slides are some pictures of what we've experienced. These sections of road are extremely soft. They're deeply rutted to the extent that you'll need a 4x4 in order to get in and out of these roads. These ruts, some of them don't look that deep, but you're looking at 6 to 8 inches. So passenger vehicle is going to have difficulty getting through these roads. These are a few other roads, Bear Cave and Ed Breeze Road, which Councillor Edwards was most concerned about. Next, please. And further roads. Next, please. It needn't be that way. Here are some photographs of some roads that have behaved reasonably well through the period. The roads have been recently reconstructed, I would say within the last 5 to 7 years by staff. Next slide, please. The roads are dry. They're not rutted. They're well performing. And frankly, the difference between these two, there's 2 big issues. Number one, you'll notice that the trees and the brush are well back from the roadway. And the second thing you'll notice is that there are ditches. As I've said to you on numerous occasions, there's only 3 things you have to know about building a road, and the first 2 are get rid of the water. Next slide, please. So this is what a well-designed and constructed road looks like. Critical issues. You've got a good base under it. There's at least a foot of granular array underneath it. And then at least another 6 inches of granular array on top of that. The other thing I think you need to notice is that the ditches are sufficiently deep to drain the subbase and the subgrade of the road. And frankly, this is what I mean by getting rid of the water. Next slide, please. A little bit of engineering 101. A road needs to have a good base under it. And if it doesn't, and it's not well drained, then what happens is you get water frozen into the basin and the subgrade. As it thaws, there's a buildup of moisture and pore water pressure increases. It becomes soft, and the action of the traffic over top of it causes the base and the subbase to or subgrade to weaken to the point where it fails. Unfortunately, past practice has been blade it off, put 2 inches of granular array on top of it, and call it a road. And that, frankly, simply is not going to work. Next slide, please. So what do? We've been hitting it with between 4 inches and 6 inches of 2-inch clear stone in spots to try and deal with the worst of the soft areas. Really, that's about the only thing that we can do is to try and strengthen the base so that we can get people in and out. Unfortunately, it's not a permanent solution, and it's not cheap. And so hence my caution to you about the future. Next, please. This is another area on Russell Lake Road 2. Same sort of issue. Next. So some some thoughts for you in the future. I would strongly recommend that you continue to brush and get the brushing back at least to the backside of the ditch, and frankly, back to the edge of the right of way if at all possible. Continued emphasis on ditching. You've got to get rid of the water. And the ditches need to be sufficiently deep in order to drain the subgrade. So cutting just a little swale is not good enough. You got to get it down at least a foot below the underside of the drain or base in order for that to drain and stay drained, so that it doesn't build up those pore water pressures that cause the loss of strength. We've got to continue on with putting down good bases under our roads. When we crack them open, do it right. And unfortunately, it's going to cost money. But that's the reality. And finally, winter seems to be the time that the contractors love to get in and start rooting around and digging and blasting rock and whatnot. It's those repeated loadings on the road that are causing the damage and will destroy a road if we're not careful. So with that, Madam Chair, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Committee questions. Councillor Bohemsworth, Councillor Zavitz, Mayor Kelley.
Thank you, and through you. Two questions. One is, can you explain to us the importance of the brushings and why it makes a difference? And the second question is, when you have the ditches at the appropriate level and the appropriate amount of aggregate under the road, what's the distance between the top of the road and the bottom of the ditch?
Thank you.
So getting the brushing out, first of all, it allows us to put in a ditch as opposed to not having the space to put in a ditch, number one. The other odd thing about it is it opens up the roadway so the sun can get at it. Mother Nature can do the heavy lifting. We can do it without the brushing, but it further adds to cost. And if we can get Mother Nature to do the hard work for us, I think that's in the taxpayer's best long-term interest. In terms of depth, from the crown of the road to the invert of the ditch or the bottom of the ditch, you're probably looking at about 3/4 of a meter. So, 2.5 feet to 3 feet, somewhere in there. Obviously, some areas it will be deeper because also you've got to have a longitudinal grade to the ditch, right? Longitudinal grade should be at minimum 0.3% and ideally 1%. So 1 foot or 1 meter in 100 meters is the ideal, or at least the best. Now, that having been said, in a place like Muskoka, finding 100 meters of reasonably flat ground is nigh on impossible. But
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you to the director. I'm very interested in this notion of half loads. And of course, we have them every year. It's now. And I'm wondering what the occurrence of and who enforces it, that in terms of, you don't see any less trucks during this time. In fact, you see the CN in Torrance with all their big equipment this morning, et cetera, et cetera. Do we have, is there incidents of bylaws stopping or trucks just for general inspections like you see on the 401, 400? Or do we have, well, I'll just leave you to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Becking.
unfortunately, that's the flaw in the legislation. Under the Municipal Act, this council is able to set half loads periods or periods of reduced loadings. Unfortunately, it's an infraction under the Highway Traffic Act. and therefore only the police can enforce. Suffice it to say, this is not a high priority for the police, and it's not a high priority for MTO. And so the contractors, frankly, they do what they do with impunity, and they know that they can get away with it.
Thank you. Mayor Kelley.
Thank you, and through you,
Excuse me.
to Director
Thank
Becking. Thanks for the presentation. I just wanted to go back to the brushing issue. I first heard of brushing, I think about a year ago up on Sands Road. That's where you learned of it. And I seem to recall that we had somehow gotten ourselves a couple of years behind schedule in terms of clearing and brushing. And my question simply is, do you think it's useful or worthwhile to double down and try to get caught up in kind of a blitz, or do we just continue on with the scheduling the way we presently structure it?
Director Becking.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, Madam Chair, we're a lot more than a couple of years behind. We should be doing about 30 kilometers a year. We're doing about 3. And that's the rule of thumb is you do it about once every 10 years, every kilometer. We got 350 kilometers of road, 10 years, 35 kilometers a year. There you go. That's how I got to my number. And remember that those are 2-sided kilometers. I would suggest to you that trying to blitz, frankly, we don't have the resources, and to drag in other resources from outside of the area would be increasingly expensive. What I would suggest to you is, again, a slow, steady, gradual approach. You approved the purchase of a second brushing unit, which is mounted on our grader. That will have a huge effect in terms of preventing the problem getting worse. You've already done the right thing, frankly, by providing us with that resource that we can now use. So that will prevent the large buildups. We still will do our 3 or 4 or 5 kilometers a year, and we'll use the heavy equipment for that. And over time, you will claw your way out, but it's going to take a while.
Thank you. Another question, Councillor Bosworth.
Thank you, and through you, of the 43 kilometers that are in poor condition, is it safe to say that they are of high priorities in our capital plan?
Thank you. Director
Madam
Becking.
Chair, I would say that no, that's not a reasonable assumption. You have to remember the reason it's a gravel road is because it's a low volume, low priority road. And frankly, that's been the problem prior to me coming here, is that they were always given the limited pot of money that staff were given to deal with things. They were always sort of the poor 3rd or 4th cousin, twice removed. What we've done is we've made it a priority, and we've been picking away at it. And you're going to have to continue to do so. Currently, we're doing, memory serves, about 2.5 to 3 kilometers a year. And it's going to take an increased effort to get that up. But once you get it up, once you get a proper base under it, those performance issues. One of the photographs that I put in my presentation was Bear Cave Road. There was the bad one, which is the section of road that we haven't gotten to. There was the good one, which was the one that we've been reconstructing over the last couple of years. And same road, same in situ conditions, 2 entirely different performances.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Director Becking. This is the same theme of information that you've been providing us for a year on the state of our infrastructure. And we know that in the next few months, we're going to get into the capital level service study, so that we'll be able to discuss these things. But specifically right now today, is there anything more that council can do to support your efforts to do more with these roads, or just?
Thank you. Director Becking.
No, I have to say that frankly, Madam Chair, Council has been very supportive over the last 5 years in terms of raising the profile of these issues. And you've approved a number of initiatives and have been very understanding when things have gone sideways on us when we go over budget. That's the reason why. I think, as I've explained to council on a number of occasions, don't throw money at it. Don't just throw money at it and expect that life will be wonderful and good. First of all, we currently don't have the internal capacity to spend that money. And second of all you're doing is creating a blip, which you're going to then have to fund on a regular interval thereafter. Again, my recommendation would be to ramp up gradually over time and spread that pain out, so that yes, it will take longer to claw our way out of the hole that we're in, but we will get there. And once we get there, it will be sustainable into the future. And the long-term sustainability of the municipality and its road system, I think is the greater objective that needs to be adhered to.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Director Becking.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'll just note that we do have a really long agenda today. I'm feeling the pressure. And staff have been asked to abbreviate their reports. So there's some very good reports in here, but as you will note, when staff come to the podium, they will be giving us an abbreviated report, but we will still have the opportunity to ask all of our questions. But just understand the goal is because we do have a pretty fulsome set of agendas today. So with that, I would ask item 7B. Mr. Sopko. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the report before you summarizes some changes to the traffic bylaw. One, to place a new stop sign at the intersection of Baldwin Road with Zista Road, and secondly, to exempt Evely and McDonald Road from reduced load exemptions. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. That was an abbreviated report. I appreciate that. You did take that very seriously. I appreciate it. That's great. Committee, are there any questions? That worked too. No questions? Good, thank you. I will read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that committee approve the amendments to bylaw 2021-087 traffic bylaw as attached to report PW-2024-024, and that the amending bylaws be forwarded to council for final approval. Are there any comments? Okay, seeing none. Call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 7C, Mr. Moore, welcome.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, committee. Today's report presents committee with the final report of the arena feasibility study. Committee is well aware of the progress we've made over the past 8 months on this project. The consultant has provided her updates as we complete each phase of the project, starting with the building conditions analysis, community needs, and a range of alternatives. The final report includes a deeper dive into each of these sections you'll find in Appendix 1. Of course, next steps we're aware are the level of service study And the purpose of this final document is to provide committee and council with the information required to help guide a future decision as it relates to our recreation amenities. With that, Chair, staff are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Committee, are there any questions? Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. Through you. I suppose, given that we just had a presentation from the curling entity, if you will, and there is a curling club and again, they're private in both Bala and Port Carling. I wonder if in this motion, we would add that notion that, and of course, we haven't even discussed it yet, but maybe cart before the horse, but if we're going to consider them and add them to that list, if you will, of the public who have input, then would it not be proper to somehow indicate that here? Question.
I think it's actually, I see Director Becking and Mr. Moore, so I'll let you decide who wants to respond first.
Sure, through you, Chair. I know later on in the agenda, there is an item to speak to a discussion surrounding the presentation we heard today. There is a drafted recommendation with that. And perhaps the clerk could speak a little bit more to the details surrounding that as it relates to it.
Okay, thank you. Director Peroshi?
Thank you, through you. We do have something drafted. It was just staff's potential recommendation at the time when we have the discussion, but it is up to committee how they'd like to proceed with it. My understanding is that the resolution before you is to do with the arena feasibility study and to move it forward to the level of service study. The level of service study is going to examine what our current level of services are, what we're offering. And there's a potential that maybe after that's done to then look further to, okay, once we know what we have and what we want to continue to do, what do we potentially want to add to that complement? So I think in a very high level, that's, I think, kind of where staff were looking to go. But I'd leave it to committee how they'd like to proceed.
Director Becking, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, that was the essence of it, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I now see Councillor Kent, Councillor Nishikawa, and I wasn't sure, Councillor Roberts, did I see your hand up as well? Okay, that's fine. So I will read the resolution after. This is still question period. So Councillor Kent?
This is, thank you very much, and through you. This is the area, my last comment in the curling question was, it was the arena feasibility study where we unintentionally omitted the curling people from that survey. So there was no data in the survey. That's where I'm concerned. We had no data from them as a user. They're no more or less important than the swimming community, which we sort of added at the end. So that was my only comment.
Thank you for the question. I do see Director Becking, you wanted to respond?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, when we went through both the master plan as well as the arena feasibility study, we conducted surveys of the public writ large. And the public had every right to comment. We received comments from pickleball. We received comments from a variety of other groups who chose to comment to us. We did not actively go out and pursue any one group, but rather advertise broadly of people's ability to participate, to engage, and to provide information. During the master plan, we did consider the issue of private clubs and whether or not there was merit to pursuing those private clubs. And by that, I'm referring to the curling club as but one example. There are others, the tennis club, the yacht club at Beaumaris and so forth. Those entities are not within our current book of business, if you will. And therefore, in order to compare apples to apples, we stuck to our book of business. I would suggest to you that the curling club's request, frankly, is premature. At no point in this process are you being asked to approve of designs or what's in the building, what's out of the building. all we've done through the arena feasibility study is give you the background information so that that can be fed into the level of service study. The level of service study will address, again, the businesses that we are currently in. You can decide whether we are in the business, number one, and if we are in the business, to what extent are we in the business? Should we provide more service or less service? Or stick with what we're doing right now? All of those options are open to you, but I would suggest to you that it's in the township's interest to first and foremost consider the businesses that you are in presently. Having decided what businesses you're in and having decided the extent to which you are in those businesses, then you can consider whether you choose to be in other businesses and what the fiscal ramifications are of that decision. Having made that decision, then you can start talking about design alternatives. And if you decide, and I'll use the curling club as the example, if you decide that a curling element should be part of some broader complex that you're planning to design, then you can start incorporating those features into the design at that time. I would suggest, and I would take my cue from the clerk, but what's before you right now is the arena feasibility study. And I would confine your decision-making at this point to that. There is a resolution later on in the agenda which will address the current request from the curling club and to discuss and debate that resolution at that time, specifically as it relates to that particular matter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Through you, I'm not quite clear what we're voting on. I haven't heard the resolution, but I guess my question would be, are we voting on the location at this time?
No.
Just
So-
wanted to clarify that for other people that are actually watching, because there has been a big conversation within the curling community, and I would suggest that there's services being offered that the municipality is not involved in the wintertime. Because in fact, we don't do very much in the wintertime other than hockey and skating. Those voices need to be heard. And so I just wanted to confirm that we're not voting on removing the Bala Arena or any of those things at this time.
So perhaps, thank you very much for the question. I will read the resolution and that then allows others to have comment. I believe, Councillor Roberts, you wanted to wait for your comments until after I've read the resolution, correct? Okay. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that the arena feasibility study final report as presented at the April 10th, 2024 meeting of the General and Finance Committee be received, and that the matter be referred for consideration in the level of service study project as part of the overall services to be provided to the residents of the township. Okay, I will ask Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Dr. Becky did summarize a lot of the points I had to do. That this is just the feasibility study. Nothing's been decided. So we should work the recipe that we have in place. There is, and maybe Director Becking or Mr. Moore can elaborate on the phase 2 of the feasibility study, where we get the public involved. Everyone will have another chance to come in before we make any design decisions, I assume, and present their case for including. And I think this would be the appropriate time for anything that's not there, people don't like to do it. So I guess that's a lot of comment, but can you elaborate more on the deliverables of the phase 2?
Thank you. Just phase 2 of the arena feasibility study, or are you now thinking forward to the level of service study?
No, not the level studies, the phase 2 of the arena feasibility study that's
So,
was mentioned in the report.
okay. So, Mr. Moore?
Yes, to further dive into phase 2. So the scope of this project was to look at the current arenas and the current uses today as we see them. Not projecting anything into the future about what potentially could be. So with that, there was consultation with the current user groups of those facilities themselves. As Director Becking mentioned, there was also a larger public survey available to the community. And we also received some input with staff as well into those considerations in terms of, the use of the arenas and the day-to-day experiences they see as well. As Councillor Roberts mentioned, moving into the level of service study, there would certainly be more public consultation as part of that process as well, at which time, depending how committee or council wishes to see fit, you would have kind of those further discussions with various other community groups, associations, et cetera, as well too.
Okay, thank you. Committee, are there any other comments? Okay, seeing that I've read the question, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. Item 8A. Michelle. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, committee. The report before you is regarding a license agreement application that was received from the owners of 52 Gregory Road, Unit 1, to recognize and permit the continued use of a dock located on a portion of Township road allowance. Staff have reviewed the application and are recommending approval subject to the noted conditions. And with that said, I will turn it back to the chair.
Thank you. Committee, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that license agreement application LA-01-24 Weir be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, that a draft numbered reference plan of survey be prepared and provided to the clerk for review within 1 year of the date of this conditional approval. 2, that the township be in receipt of the following from the acting solicitor. A confirmation of a title search that the applicant is the owner of the abutting land and that the encroachments are located on township land. And 2, a draft licensing agreement to the satisfaction of the township. Third part, that the applicant provides proof of liability insurance covering the encroachments in the minimum amount of $2 million with the township named as additional insured. And 4, payment of any applicable fees related to the preparation of the license agreement, including but not limited to the solicitor's time and disbursements, as well as confirmation applicable property taxes have been paid up to date. So I've read the resolution. Are there any comments, discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Moving on to 8B, Director Donaldson, welcome.
Morning, committee. So the report before you is a legislative requirement that the council be advised or committee be advised with respect to development charges collected and used in 2023. So there's a chart that shows the balances for each of the services within the development charge portfolio and a list of projects that the money was spent on last year. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Committee. Do you have any questions? Councillor Boseworth.
Thank you, and through you to the director. These are in our I forget the term, but it's protected reserves.
Obligatory.
Obligatory. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? None, I will read the question. Read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Boseworth, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that committee recommend to Township Council that the 2023 Development Charges Reserve Report as presented on April 10th, 2024, FIN-2024-005 be received. Any further comments? No, thank you very much for the update. Appreciate it. All those in favor? That carries. Put the cart before the horse, sorry. Forgot to call the question. Thank you very much to the report, Director Donaldson. Okay, 8C. Ms. Hollows, welcome.
Good. Just, good morning, committee. I'm happy to stand in front of you today to present you with my report regarding accessibility within the Township of Muskoka Lakes. The report documents all of the work that we've accomplished to date, commencing in approximately 2010, I think, and also speaks to what we intend to do going forward for the next 2 years. I'm happy to take any questions from any of you today at this time, but I'm also happy to take questions and concerns from the community at any time. And I hope that you would make that known to anyone who has any concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee questions. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you through you too, Cheryl. In going through it, I didn't see the concern in Port Carling in particular. And a bit in Bala as well, when people are parked on the sidewalk, for instance, is that accessibility. Currently, we force people out into the middle of the road who are in a wheelchair or in an accessible unit of some sort, and they got to go right up and down the highway. And is there some discussions happening with district, how we're going to deal with that?
Well, not through me personally. I know exactly what you're speaking to because I walk those roads all the time. And I know exactly what you're saying. I maybe would ask if Public Works has any comment in that regard. I'm not aware of any discussions myself.
Okay, thank you. Director Becking.
Madam Chair, with respect to Port Carling, there are no current discussions underway as it relates to the south side of the roadway, if you will. Simply put, we've run out of space. The space is provided for parking purposes, but the public is encouraged to use the sidewalk on the opposite side of the road. Unfortunately, in the area past the LCBO, currently we've got that area under construction, of course, so the sidewalk is unavailable, but as soon as that work is complete, the sidewalk will be reopened on the opposite side of the road. If we are to provide sidewalk on the south side, then it would require acquisition of right-of-way across the frontage of all of those properties in order to construct a sidewalk.
Okay, thank you. A supplementary?
Thank you. I'm not sure who wants to speak on this, but it's interesting to me though, for a number of years that I've been raising this, and I don't see us inching forward doing anything. However, there was some conversations about removing some of those parking locations and finding other parking. Has any other discussions taken place to find other alternative parking so that we could make, it is, the one side of the road is not, will not be accessible either. You know, with the grade and everything else, it's, and sorry, I'm on the accessibility committee. We discuss this often. It's almost a little bit, I'm being pointed out how poor access is in Port Carling. And so I just get frustrated because I don't see that we're doing anything. So maybe removing those parking, but I'm wondering if that was even considered.
I guess Director Becking. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm not aware of there being any move afoot to remove parking and put it elsewhere. Unfortunately, in Port Carling, there is a significant deficit of parking already, and to further exacerbate that situation, I think would be resisted by the business community.
Thank you very much. CAO Hammond.
Thanks, Madam Chair. My apologies, committee, got a bit of a cold, so I'm going to leave my mask on while I speak this morning. So I believe Councillor Nishikawa's reference to being on the accessibility committee is that of district. Staff would be happy to follow up with district road staff to follow up with their accessibility staff to see if there's been any commentary or references made that we can pursue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Zavitz?
Yeah, thank you very much through you. On the Sunset Park piece, further down on the report, it mentions that there was a mat, an accessibility mat, an access mat to the lake. And it says it was purchased. I know it was purchased and I've never seen it. It's never been there. It's never been positioned. It's never been in place. Is this in storage or do we? Anyway, that's my question too. And I suppose to staff. Thank you.
Ms. Hollis, or is it Director Becking who?
Yes, I'm afraid so.
The Director
I
Becking?
just administer. So I don't do the technical.
Thank you, Director Becking.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, a mat was purchased and it is presently in storage. We have had little or no call for it.
Okay, thank you. Do we want to wait to, can I read the resolution and then we can have further conversation and that way? I just want to make sure we have questions at this point. Okay, I will read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that committee recommend to Township Council that the 2021-23 annual accessibility status report LS-2024-011 be received and that the 2024-25 multi-year accessibility plan be approved. So at this point, I will ask Councillor Nishikawa if you'd like to make a further comment.
As far as that accessibility, there is a discussion being ongoing. The reason why it wasn't put at Torrance at the time, because quite frankly, it got put at the far end of the from the parking lot, would not have been accessible to use as accessible. And so finding the right location was a bigger discussion and has been, I believe, I thought I was having ongoing conversations, but if that's not happened, I apologize. Yeah, I guess it's just gonna land where it lands. Thank you.
Okay, so I think I see Councillor Zavitz. I just want to make sure that we're being there sounds like there's an opportunity here. Discussions can be had and I want to separate it necessarily from what we have in front of us today. Maybe Director Becking, did you want to help create a path forward on that specific item?
Certainly, we can have a conversation with the councillor and get her thoughts on placement of the mat.
Okay, thank you. It sounds like Councillor Nishikawa and Councillor Zavitz both have expressed some interest. So I just want to keep it separate from this specific report in front of us. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing that I've read the question, I'll call all those in favor. Thank you. That carries. Okay, item 8C. 8C I've just done, sorry. There's no resolution on this next one. 9A, Chief Morrell.
Good morning, committee.
Welcome.
Yeah, good morning. In the interest of time, I'll try to be very brief. In front of you is a report, an information report brought to committee, citing the wildfire season preparedness that the Muskoka Lakes Fire Department has prepared. You'll note on the report in section 1, it talks about the problem. Research scientists are warning that this next upcoming year will be worse than last year, and last year was a record-breaking year. Our preparedness is detailed in the appendice, and it actually talks about all the specific things we do here in Muskoka Lakes. But what I'd like to draw committee's attention to is the future preparedness items. We are proposing to put in for a grant to get more training for our Fire Smart program. And we also promote the Fire Smart program aptly on our social media feeds. I now stand for questions.
Thank you. There isn't a resolution committee, so if you have any questions at this point, comments? Councillor Roberts.
Just a quick comment, great report, Chief. And I have already recommended to a few associations that they consider getting this information out to their membership, either through their AGM or a newsletter.
Councillor Bosworth?
Thank you, and through you. I don't think I saw it in the report, but do you encourage residences to water their, sprinkle and water their own sites to help reduce any possibility of fire in their area?
Thank you. Chief
Through
Farrell?
you, through you, as a wildfire approaches, some of those tactics are asked for. That is a well-known strategy that the MNRF uses. They will water an area with sprinklers. We actually have those sprinklers, but we have to be choosy because we only have so many. We do have a good partnership arrangement, as some of you might have noted yesterday. We were in Gravenhurst working with our mutual aid partner there. They have a whole trailer dedicated for that purpose to protect values, but it's not something that we typically ask residents to do. We would ask you to do that if you are doing any outdoor burning in your backyard that will reduce any embers from your own fire. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more, I would like to thank you for being proactive and bringing this forward to us. And it sounds like there's some ongoing communication opportunities in your plan as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
9B. I believe this is Mr. Moore. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Committee will recall last month we received a presentation from the Windermere Village Playground Committee regarding a proposal for a new playground at the Windermere Village Hall property. The presentation was very well done. Hard not to get excited about a potential partnership opportunity. In saying that, staff are well aware we have two major projects currently underway. First is the level of service study. The second is the Parks and Trails Standards Manual. Both of these projects will certainly help guide decisions as we receive these types of requests moving forward. And as such, staff would recommend at this time we defer any decision on the proposal until those two projects are completed. And we make sure we go through the proper steps before adding any new infrastructure into our community. And with that, staff are available for any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you, through you to staff. For the applicants, do we have a timeline? Like, are we suggesting maybe this won't happen this year?
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
Yes, through you, Chair. I think that would be safe to say. Staff would definitely intend to maintain communication with this committee and this group, but understanding the current timelines associated with the level of service study and the Parks and Trails Standards Manual, they're likely not to be completed until the end of this year, at which time we would then further consider this proposal along with any required budgeting for it.
Thank you. A supplemental, Councillor Nishikawa?
I guess I'm challenged to understand why these studies have such an impact on this small playground. I don't understand the relationship between these other two major projects, as we call them, and a very small playground, which is a request from the community, and they're coming up with the money. And I don't think it should be just bundled in with these studies. It's a need. They're willing to step up. How do we move it forward?
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Moore or Director Becking, I see you both have your.
Sure, I may defer to the director if he has some comments.
Certainly. Madam Chair, the efforts that we are putting here are intended to get council to take a serious look at how much infrastructure we have and to make some decisions about what is an appropriate quantity of infrastructure given the nature of our community. I would say, and this is personal observation, that there have been a whole host of very well-intentioned initiatives over the last 50 years to provide amenities and infrastructure for the community. I would submit to you that the community has changed significantly in those 50 years to the point where we have infrastructure that may not be suitable for the community going forward. And so to further create infrastructure that may not necessarily suit the community into the longer term, we're suggesting that we take a pause. Let's go through and do the analyses that are going to be necessary to decide what is the nature and the extent of the services to be provided to the community by the township. And once we have identified those levels of service, if the proposal from the community fits with that direction, then fine, go ahead and do so. But I think council needs to be cautious about exacerbating the situation currently.
Thank you. I think I saw, so I just want to remind committee right now, we're on questions. Then I can read the resolution and then we can have further discussion. So I saw Councillor Zavitz first and then Councillor Kent.
Thank you, and through you. It's interesting when I, sat here earlier when this was first brought forward, and then as I look at the staff report, and I'm certainly listening to Director Becking's words, I kind of like the alternative one. I think that to Councillor Nishikawa's point, this isn't huge, but in terms of an expenditure, psychologically, do we want to be moving ahead prior to the major study being done? And my answer would be yes to that. And I'm going to get to a question, but I think for the amount of money, when the public is coming forward with not with their hand out, half of a hand, and they're going to be
urging the question at this point.
Yeah. So my question would be back to Director Becking. I hear what he's saying, and I understand his positioning from that perspective, but I just would ask you, sir, it's the community coming forward. How does that fit with staff in terms of this type of request? I'm not saying it's benign, it's a benign request. It's major at the end of the day with expenditure. How does staff rationalize some of your commentary? I mean, I understand you're giving us a reco, but I wouldn't mind a bit more information from you on that.
I think I want clarity a bit on this question, so I'm going to try and repeat what I think is that if a community group or member comes forward with an idea or request like this, how does that fit? And like on any scale, Director Becking.
The community, any group within the community can come forward with a proposal. But at the end of the day, if the proposal is going to become the property of the township, then I think you need to take a half step back and think about this. First of all, to what standard is this work going to be done? And is that an acceptable standard? Will it properly serve the needs and not become a liability to the township afterwards? The other issue, frankly, is that these things are not a here today, gone tomorrow thing. You're going to be hanging on to this thing for 50 years. And it's,
Excuse me. Thank you.
it's not the capital cost that hurts you. It's the ongoing year in, year out maintenance cost that is going to potentially be significant. It may seem like a minor thing right now, but in the future, it could be quite significant. And I'm speaking more broad terms than just a play structure.
Okay, thank you. CAO Hammond?
Thanks, Madam Chair, for recognizing me. And I think your staff are bringing up some really good points. The reason you're going into a service level review is most of our infrastructure was in place when this municipality was created. So we've got a huge legacy with respect to infrastructure that we're struggling with now. And so all they're pointing out to you is that they don't feel this is the opportune time to be adding more to that complement. I don't think they're saying that they don't think this is a good proposal, because it is. The community is coming forward, but is the timing right? That's the question. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make sure, again, we're talking, asking questions, and then I will read the resolution. Thank you. Councillor Kent.
Question.
And through
you.
Thank you.
How did, and this is history that I don't know, how did Jansen Park come to be? How did we make a decision on that redo of a playground at very significant expense? And just to compare and contrast, because I don't.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Through
Mr.
you,
Moore.
Chair. Jasper Park was a piece of existing infrastructure. So current infrastructure that we own and need to maintain and keep up to standards. It had come to the end of its useful life, and therefore was included in the capital budget for replacement. So the difference being here, new piece of infrastructure that would need to be considered by committee.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read the resolution. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that any decision with respect to the Windermere Village Playground proposal be held in abeyance pending the completion of the capital level of service study as outlined in staff report PW-2024-027. Now I will ask for comments. And I'm going to ask Mayor Kelley, Councillor McIntyre, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, and through you, I was trying to figure out how to make this a question, but I couldn't. It is a question. Do we not recall the budget exercise earlier this year where we learned a lot about the cost of carrying piles of brick and mortar that nobody's really done a conscientious evaluation of in the past? Did we not remember the pain we went through when we went with a increase to the levy of whatever it was, 15 some odd %? Do we not remember the fact that we have committed, I think, future infrastructure development to be subject to a very disciplined and, I will say, discreet and impartial review of the assets we presently have, those which we think we need to patch up and repair and keep, those which we might need to dispose of, and arguably those which we need to acquire subsequently. I think we've turned a corner in terms of bringing a discipline to spending money, whether it's our money or somebody else's money. It's all somebody else's money. Don't make no mistake. It's all somebody else's money. And I think we've committed to taking a good hard look at what we have before we make any further commitments, and what we have and what we reasonably think we're going to need before we make any more commitments to spend. I think we're going to come from the other end of this study with much more data-driven, metrics-oriented decision-making that's going to make better and more efficient decisions that will impact our taxpayers less, or maybe just provide better levels of service down the road. I think the biggest crime here or situation here is if we go ahead, and it is only a little bit of money, it always is only a little bit of money. If we go ahead and do something like this now, either we've sort of, without really thinking about it, made a commitment to leaving that parkland or wherever it's going to be dropped in place and shelter them from the review that we're going to put all of the assets of the township under. Or we've decided that at some point in a year or two, we might just rip that playground material back out again because we've decided we're not going to stay there. I don't think we should do things that way. I think we need to come up with our plan of attack. I think we need to adopt the discipline that we need, know when we make these decisions where it's leading, because we're the leaders of this stuff, and shelter people from making decisions like this and spending money like this, which 2 years down the road might look like a really bad idea, might just further the method of doing business from the last 50 years that's got us into this relatively expensive and not 100% efficient load of infrastructure that we're currently carrying. I don't know if that was a question or not.
Well, you don't need to ask questions at this point. So that's a comment, and I do appreciate it. And I appreciate the respectful nature, and I just encourage all of us to remember that staff have come forward with their thoughts and recommendation. And we just want to make sure we are being respectful in all of our commentary. Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you. Through you. I think the biggest resource that we have going forward with this project is the community. Because it's the community that has come forward. They're really motivated. It sounds like they've got their fundraising and they're doing all of this for their children. I don't want to make nasty comments about the Walker's Point stove situation, but these people are moving forward because they want a playground for their kids. If we move it down the road, their kids could be going to high school. I'm really worried about that. And I'm thinking that if we're smart, we can use the resource of the community and all of their enthusiasm to move forward in a good way. If we wait for 2 years, who knows if that's still going to be there? Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. I can't remember if it was, I think it was Councillor Roberts and then Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I first of all, I'm going to apologize to Director Becking. Usually him and I have some early morning chats about things like this and this subject, but I didn't pick up on this until last evening, so I didn't want to call him at home. And I did talk to Miss Lang about the report coming forward, and I mentioned to her what the report said. I think there's some work to be done to help with that, with the Windermere Parkland Committee, to help them manage their expectations and what can happen. They're starting to realize that this is a very expensive little thing that they thought it'd be inexpensive to do. I'm fully in support, and I don't want to waver from the capital level service study for the existing stuff we had. I'm shocked and surprised that Windermere doesn't have a nice little park for the children. But we had done the master plan, and the master plan talks about the park trail classifications, parks and trails, and that's key. Even though we might make this an exception to saying because the community is paying for it. But we got to work our plans. We got to, in the Parks and Recreation, it talked about volunteer help. Well, this is volunteer help, but we got to understand how we're going to gauge the volunteers and how we can engage the volunteers, because at the end of the day, it is the township property where this is going. I'll give you one small example in my history in Milford Bay. We too have a very active community, and we have money to do things. And we just, a selective people decided we were going to put in adult exercise equipment. And this was a few years ago, before Mr. Becking's time. And we went ahead and we put that, we contracted it. We got permission from the township to do it. We came to the specifications, we put it in, and we had this beautiful, expensive adult exercise equipment. And it's exactly what we asked for, but maybe not what the community needed, because it's not being used. So it behooves us to really take a pause and make sure that we're going to do the right thing. Why the club the community came to us last month is they want to do something to celebrate the 100th year incorporation of Windermere. And this was their idea. So I think the Councillors Award B can work with them to see what we can do to help that. But my fear on the whole thing here is that, and I mentioned this to Ms. Lang last night, is that a couple of things is that if we don't get it in the 2025 budget, it'll be 2026. It's just the way we work. So what I would like to see on this is that, and I guess through to the CAO or to the treasurer or whoever, or senior management team, that we actually include the Windermere possibility of this new park in the budget. So we can bring it back and discuss it along with all the other things we have. And then we bring the community around. I'm so happy that the community is coming saying, hey, we're willing to help fund this. So that's my thoughts on it. We've got to do something. We've got some serious and hard decisions on service levels, on many buildings, on community centers, on fire halls, on arenas. And we have to decide what we can afford. And then if someone comes along and says, hey, you don't worry about affording this, we're going to pay for it, but it's got to be as it says in the report, it's got to be under the project management of the township. But I think we really got to help show appreciation to the community for them coming forward and get them involved in the process and what this partnership could be. So that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you. I just, a couple of points I was hoping, Mr. Murray, you could touch upon. One, consideration for this in the budget. Did you say that the projects would be completed by the end of this year, the fiscal year, the level service study and the parks manual?
Yes, through you, Chair, the Parks and Trails Service Manual should be completed early fall. As it relates to the level of service study, I may defer to Director Becking or the CAO, but I believe it's the fall as well, too.
Okay, CAO Hammond. Okay, Director Becking.
Sorry, Chair.
Level of service study and the parks manual. I was just getting clarification that they're intended to be completed by the end of this year.
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I think I heard from Councillor Roberts, the request to put this budget item as a budget request in the next budget cycle as part of the resolution. So Director Peroshi, is that something we can accomplish today if that's okay? Thank you. Councillor Kent, then Councillor Zavitz. Oh, sorry. Councillor Roberts, you had one more?
Yes, just one other thing on that. When I got thinking about it last night, I went back and researched the last year's Jaspin Park. And it came in at approximately just under $140,000. And that was for an upgrade. Where this one here, we should really consider that the offer from the community. But I think on this point, we should be really thinking about paying the bulk of the costs. If our studies support that.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm talking about the capital service review and the classifications of parks and trails.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kent.
Thank you. I agree with both Councillor McIntyre and Roberts. I was going at it slightly differently, which is I felt that we should amend the resolution. I agree with the recommendation in the resolution that we defer this. But I do think we owe the constituents who've gone to this trouble to bring forward this very productive plan a commitment that we will give them a decision in early 2025. Like, let's not wait a whole nother year. We can't put them off till their kids are in university. And I have no comfort that despite getting the level of service plan and getting this, like, we can only put them off for so long. Otherwise, I think the enthusiasm waves. If we say, well, give us a year, you were late on the 2024 budget, we didn't get to consider it, we will make sure this is considered in early 2025. I wouldn't commit to necessarily putting it in the budget, but I'd commit to giving them a decision by a certain point in time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, through you. Again, I would reiterate, I think alternative one, it would be the way to go. A couple of reasons, and if you read the staff report, clearly, all we're asking for in the staff report, or staff is asking for us to bring this forward to the 2025 budget exercise in the next, right? Am I right? In the next months, right? November or December, just simply get it on the agenda. I think when the public comes forward, this is a park, a potential park. I don't want to use the word benign, but I know in item 9D, in a few minutes, we're going to be discussing, leasing a piece of property just down the street that council decided to buy for a considerable amount of money. And that's not even the business we're in. We're talking about roads and other aspects. So to my point, this is a public park of which we're being offered for a group of conscientious people to pay half. And I think in the spirit of working with them closely and in the spirit of cooperation, I think it would be excellent for us to say, hey, yes, let's join hands. Let's the great project, 100 years, isn't that wonderful? And let's move on with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Councillor Bosemarth.
Thank you, and through you, I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Kent said. I think that's a very good idea. There's enthusiasm here. We need to capture it, and the best way that we can do and still stay within our capital planning structure is to tell them that we will give them a decision for next year's capital plan.
Thank you. And perhaps I could just ask a question of staff then. Is this something that as a follow-up to today, is that something that you can do, is work with this group and help them understand the process and help manage those expectations so that they're part? The way you kind of opened this up, Mr. Moore, was that it was exciting and some enthusiasm, and we don't want to lose that. At the same time, we want to support, we don't want to undermine the process and the investments we are making into strategic planning here in the township. So I think that's what I'm struggling with a bit myself, is we want to make sure that we're following the plan and being thoughtful and strategic. But at the same time, we want to make sure we're working with our community members and fostering it and encouraging them to be as committed to this place as we are. So I guess my question to you is that something you can help us with?
Yes, certainly. Up until this point, staff have been working with the committee to help with the presentation itself and help guide them on, as Councillor Roberts mentioned, some of the associated costs. So we can certainly make sure we continue those lines of communication moving forward, because should it be a project that is included in the 2025 budget, we'll certainly need them to assist with it. And it'll be a partnership that we would certainly want to keep the communication in good lines. So
thank you. Committee, just give me 1 minute. I have a question for our clerk, and then I will call a question. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. I wanted to make sure I did this correctly and that we've captured, I believe, the essence of what everybody is feeling around this table. So I will read a new resolution as drafted by our clerk. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that the resolution be substituted for the following. Be it resolved that committee support the partnership with respect to the Windermere Village Playground proposal in principle, and the staff be directed to work with the Windermere Village Playground Group to include the matching funds required for the project in the 2025 capital budget for council's consideration. Are there any questions? Okay, so seeing none, so I ask for this and then go back and then me. Okay, so I will call the question. All those in favor of this, what I just read, yes. Thank you. And then, and all in favor now of the main motion. Right. Thank you. For some reason, I'm struggling with this one myself. So, okay, so let me reread this one. Okay. Madam Clerk.
I'm just going to provide some procedural clarification. So the resolution that was originally read is gone now. You just passed a resolution to substitute it. So you are now going to call for the main motion as substituted. So it's the same as an amendment, but we took the whole thing and put it away and put a new one in place. Okay, thank you.
So I'm not reading this anymore.
No.
Yes.
Okay. Our clerk just summarized that nicely for us. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you for your assistance. Yes. It's important that we get it right, and it's important to me that we are all understanding what we're putting our hand up. So thank you for that extra few minutes of patience. It is 10:30. I'd like to call a break till 10:45, and we will regroup at that point with item 9D. Thank you. Oh, 9C. Thank you. Okay, committee, we are back. Committee. Thank you. We are back and we are now on item 9C. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Just some small housekeeping items today for the cemetery bylaw. Committee's aware last year included in the capital budget was a columbarium for the Port Carling Cemetery that is set to be installed early this spring. And with that, we just had to make some amendments to the bylaw to incorporate some new rules and regulations to help guide staff in the sale of niches, etc. So with that, Chair, available for any questions.
Thank you. Committee questions. Councillor Nishikawa.
Through you to Corey, I've been asked by a taxpayer in the community. He read through the bylaws and thought that there was a change in the bylaws, and I apologize because I haven't scanned all of those. That in the past we used to, well, I would say it happens in my family too, that you could have two people buried on one site, and now that's been changed. And how does one appeal that, I guess, would be the question from that particular person, because those were purchased for those reasons, and those plans are all in place. And I know, for instance, if I look at Sudbury, who's got a little bit of rock up there, that in fact, my own family plots have many members. I'm just saying, and I'm just wondering where this all fits into that as well.
So I think the question is, can we have multiple? I'm not even going to try to say this. Okay, Mr. Moore, just go.
Yes. So as it relates to the amendments in the bylaw, there is a redlined version in Appendix 1. So I do know staff have only made changes to the part regarding niches. In the bylaw itself, we haven't made any changes to existing rules and regulations. Off the top of my head, I don't have the bylaw in front of me, so I'd have to reference that in terms of burials on a plot of land. Unless I don't know if the director knows that off the top of his head.
I would be happy to follow up.
Okay, hold on for a second. Director Becking, thank you.
Madam Chair, we do allow multiple burials or interments on a single plot. A single plot is a plot for a single casket, a single remains. There are provisions within the policy that allow for multiple cremated remains to be placed in a single plot. And that is still permitted, and there has been no change to that. We are, of course, being bound by the, I forget the name of the act, but it's the Burials and Cemeteries Act. Yeah.
Madam Chair, just bringing up the bylaws, the section which has not been changed, definitions 1B. Burial plot means an area of land in a cemetery containing or set aside to contain one regular interment and 4 cremated human remains, including space for a marker or monument.
Okay, thank you. So are there any other questions on the amendments? Okay, so I will read the resolution. If there's any further conversation, we can have it at that point. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that committee approve the amendments to bylaw 2013-021, cemetery bylaw, as attached to report PW-2024-026, and that the updated bylaw be forwarded to council for final approval. So are there any other comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Okay, Mayor Kelley is leaving. Okay, Mr. Moore, can start on item 9D.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This report is in regard into the usage of township property at 7 Bailey Street in Port Carling, Ontario. Staff evaluated various usage opportunities with the property itself, understanding that we're going through the level of service study. As we've mentioned multiple times today, we likely won't know the long-term use of this property until that study is completed. As such, in the short term, staff are recommending that we proceed with leasing the property for rent. And that way we can recover some revenues to help offset the operating costs in the meantime. With that, we stand for any questions.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Councillor Bosemore?
Thank you, and through you. If at some point we decided that we want to make use of that property, what is the procedure for dealing with the tenants, and what's the timeframes that may involve?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moore?
Certainly, maybe a little bit out of my area of expertise. I don't know if that would be, we would rely on the realtor for that. Oh, perfect. Lands and Agreement Court can help speak to that.
Thank you. Thank you. Michelle?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Bosemore. That would be something that may be captured in the actual lease agreement itself. We would maybe look to our lawyer to draft a clause in there to provide some sort of notice in advance should the township wish to do something with that property.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McIntyre.
Just to respond to that question, this is something I used to do. The only issue I would raise at this point in time is that there has been massive problems with the landlord and tenant board across the province. They're talking about a 2-year wait to get a hearing. If you have a tenant that is in possession, you are required to serve them with a notice, then an application, and your application may be dated for 2 years in advance. So that's the only concern we have there, unless you can come to an agreement.
Okay, thank you. I just want to remind, we're at questions, but I want, just because I know it was just asked in the comment.
Just because I think it's an important thing because of the status of the landlord tenant.
I don't, I'm not debating that. I'm just saying, as Councillor Zavitz has his hand up, I just want to make sure it's a question. And then I can restore.
Thank you. Through you. The question is, I guess to staff, how is this not going to get, or not folded into the usage study that we've just been speaking of on earlier items? Would it not be prudent to consider this piece of property as an asset of the township in terms of that study, which will be done by the end of the year?
Okay, Mr. Moore?
Yes, that's certainly the intention, is that the property itself would be included as part of the evaluation of township capital infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Supplemental?
Well, thank you, and through you. So it doesn't say that in the report. The recommendation is very much a matter of giddy up. Let's authorize staff to proceed with the leasing of the building, and yet that won't be prompted or considered until the services, asset-based service report is done at the end, by the end of the year. So are we getting ahead of ourselves is my question, I guess. Thank you.
And perhaps maybe I need clarification. I think in this, in the report, it says this approach will allow for time for council to evaluate the findings of the level of service study. I just want to make sure, is that, okay, Director Becking.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You'll recall that the property was purchased in order to keep your options open with respect to the arenas and what happens with the arena. We had an opportunity, it presented itself, and we purchased the property to keep our options open. The decision over arenas and whatnot will be premised on what comes out of the level of service studies. So to that regard, what Mr. Moore has said is correct. All that staff are saying to you is, in the interim, in order to protect the value of our asset, that building should be occupied. And we're recommending to you that it be leased out for a relatively short period of time, at least initially, so as to keep your options open. Once we get to the end of the study, if the decision is that the asset will not be required in order to meet our whatever decision you make with respect to the arenas, then you are at liberty to dispose of it, subject to whatever terms and conditions are imposed in the lease agreement. So at this stage of the game, this is just a holding action, or the recommended action is a holding action to protect the township's asset.
CAO. Say township property being section 3, lot 31, 7 Bailey Street, former township of Aurora, now in the township of Muskoka Lakes, district. Open up for conversation, discussion. Great. Item 10A. Mr. Cox, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, members of committee. My first report this morning provides an overview of the results of the 2023 business survey and a summary of any actions that are either underway or have been completed in response to some of the feedback received through the survey. The full further details on this are found in the report and its attachments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that committee may have on this.
Okay, thank you. Committee. Any questions? Okay, seeing none. There's no resolution. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Cox. Moving on to 10B.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, members of committee. So my second report this morning regards a proposed update to the special event permit bylaw. For committee's information, the special event permit bylaw has been in place for just over 2 years now and has largely worked well in the experience of staff in coordinating events taking place on township property. This process streamlines all township-related approvals and requests for events taking place on public property through a single process. However, it does not apply to events taking place on private property. Over the past 2 years, it's been recognized that large-scale special events taking place on private property have the same potential to create public health and safety hazards, as well as have impacts and effects on municipal and emergency services as events that are taking place on public property. To ensure that these events are operated safely and planned appropriately, staff have proposed an amended special event permit bylaw that would require a permit for any outdoor event on private property that has over 500 attendees. We are also recommending that the application deadline for events with over 500 attendees be extended from 60 days to 90 days to allow additional planning time, with transitional provisions put in place to ensure that events that are already being planned for this summer can still comply with the amended bylaw if adopted by committee and council. The full the full details of the update are included in my report in the attached draft bylaw, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that committee may have at this point. Thank you.
Okay, so before us, committee, we have amended bylaw. And I would ask if there are any questions on this particular bylaw, this report today. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, so I will read the resolution and then we can have discussion if required. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that the amendments to bylaw 2022-029 as redlined in Appendix 1 as attached to report CED-2024-009, being a bylaw respecting the permitting, regulating, and governing special events, be approved. and that the amending bylaw be forwarded to council for final approval. So at this point, I'd ask, are there any comments? Councillor Boseworth.
Thank you. And through you, I think this is a question, but I couldn't formulate it in time. I was just wondering if you had compared this proposed bylaw to bylaws in other municipalities who have tried to achieve the same thing, and in that sense, if we feel we have it as comprehensive as it could be.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cox?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, as part of the preparation for the proposed revisions, staff undertook a benchmarking exercise where we looked at several other special events bylaws throughout the province of Ontario, and also spoke with municipalities, that comparator municipalities to Muskoka Lakes that have experience with large scale special events on private property.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zabit?
Thank you, through you. Does this bylaw draw a differentiation between indoor and outdoor private events?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cox?
Through you, Madam Chair, the bylaw as amended would only apply to outdoor special events. So it's intended only to apply to special events taking place on private property that are entirely out of doors.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zabit? Councillor
Thank you, and through you, I guess I'm looking at the fire chief. So I guess, given that answer, anything inside structure is taken care of by fire and all those other necessities of being inside a structure. Is that correct?
Chief Morrell?
Through you, yes, that answer would be correct. The building code sets the occupancy limit, and the fire code allows us to enforce.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Boseworth, did you have a supplemental? Councillor Kent?
Thank you. And through you to Councillor Zavitz, I think you're on to the fact that there are events just where you might have 600 people and they have a cocktail party outside and then a thing inside. Would that get captured or not get captured?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cox?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the intent of the revisions of the bylaw is that they would only apply to events that are taking place outside in their entirety. Yes. Through you, Madam Chair. So the intention of these revisions is again that it would apply to events that are located entirely out of doors as a default. As has been mentioned, for events that are located indoors, there are other provisions in place, and it is certainly not the intent of these revisions to capture events that are taking place indoors where people may go outside for something, to go outside on the patio for reception or something like that.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa?
Thank you, through you to James. I'm just thinking about existing resorts and activities that they already have in place. I don't know that they've applied for special permits. I don't have that answer, but are we now sort of changing the rules that they haven't had to follow?
Mr. Cox?
So through you, Madam Chair, at present, the special event permit bylaw does not apply to any events that take place on private property. Having said that, depending on the nature of the event, there may be additional approvals through the building department or some other organization that they would have to go through, and they would still need to potentially have approvals through the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit or the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. But at present, nothing, those events do not have to apply through a special event process. If there are existing events, large scale events that are taking place on private property that have not gone through this process before, the proposed amendment would require them to obtain a special event permit. However, as I noted in the report, it is not our expectation that this will apply to many existing events on private property. Most of them are below the 500 attendee limit that we are aware of right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, seeing no other hands, I have read the question. I will call the question. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. We did not hear from the gentleman regarding the walking trail. They did not. Okay, thank you. So we will move now on to item 12B, which is in reference to the discussion we had earlier today with regards to the curling club. So I wanted to, I guess, open up the floor at this point and see how people, are there any comments from committee? Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. I suppose just to put a bow on it, do we suggest that we should be adding this, their voices, their words to the record as it relates to next steps in the facility feasibility study? I mean, we've got a group of public, 60 people have come forward asking for a voice, and I just wonder what message we should be sending to them. Which I guess is your point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments, Nishikawa?
Thank you. Sorry, I thought there might have been a response or something from that. What Councillor Zavitz raised. I wanted to clarify that this was not, I know that the last time we discussed this, last month, there was a discussion about having curling on the skating ice. That was never the intention from this club. They were actually looking for something similar to Baysville, where their club is connected to the arena facility, but it is a separate building.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't know where your question went, by the way.
Okay, so I'm going to hear from everybody, and then I think I'm going to we'll create a path forward. I just wanted to hear people's initial thoughts at this point. Councillor Burry and then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, and through you. So I'm going to go on record as being hopeful that whatever we do within recreation is thinking much, much bigger than replacing one small ice pad arena. I would hope that curling's included. I mean, this is me wearing my environmental hat. The more pieces that are associated with each other that can be put in the same building lowers operating costs and environmental footprint significantly. If we can somehow replace 2 arenas, 2 curling clubs, get a pool, look at, you know, geothermal heating and cooling, and have the kind of space that would have folks that are currently commuting in from Bracebridge and Gravenhurst decide to stay, you know what, I'm going to live in the township because I have everything I need to raise my children, to raise my family, and to be part of that. And I'm hoping that we're going to go a whole lot further than saying we're going to put Band-Aids and binder twine on Port Carling or Bala's arenas, the curling clubs. They use the same facilities. They use the same kind of heating, ventilation, and cooling systems. Putting them together makes terrific sense. If we can build the right kind of arena, not only could we have curling in a separate space with 2 pads, but we could do something like host a bonspiel and do that properly. So I'm hoping that we're gonna actually be able to look at this in a much more strategic way. You know, stop with the tactical, this piece, this group's asking for this group's asking for this. Take it all together and do a thoughtful way to put together potentially a public-private partnership that could knock the socks off of our community. Like, let's dream big. If we fail, we fail, but let's try it.
Thank you. CEO Hammond, you had your hand up.
Madam Chair, to Councillor Zavitz's point, all of the processes that we've undertaken so far, whether it be master plan, the feasibility study, there's been public touch points throughout those processes already. That will be the same for the service level review, and potentially if we go through any design exercises in the future. So there's a lot more touch points for input as we go through the process. And that's been the entire intent all along, is to ensure that we're capturing the entire community with respect to their wants and needs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts, Mayor Kelley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. At this time, I think we got to, as I have said so many times, we have a plan going forward. We just finished the first phase or working on it. I think we just, everyone, the curling club or the Tiddlywinks club, whatever, will have their opportunity sometime during phase two to provide what they think. And as my good friend, Councillor Berry said, at that time, it's, you know, it might come out loud and clear that it would make a lot of sense for us to combine this curling in there, but we won't know until we go through the whole process or get to that point. So we shouldn't add this one and then next week add something else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Becking, did you want to make a comment? I apologize, you did have your hand up.
My comment was going to be essentially the same as the CAO's. To be honest with you, repeat something I've said to you many times: crawl, walk, run.
Thank you. That was succinct. Thank you. Mayor Kelley.
Through you, I won't likely be as succinct, but my point is we've embarked upon a process, and it's going to take discipline to let the process take its course. We shouldn't be coming with preconceived notions. Otherwise, let's just skip the consultant part and design our own thing. So I think that the right steps are in place. Public consultations baked right into the formula for developing the level of service study. How would we develop a service level study if we didn't ask what service levels were expected and understand what the, you know, how much they would cost? So I'm quite comfortable that all of these, I won't say stray thoughts, but these auxiliary thoughts beyond where we are focused right now in the parts of the business that we're already in will be considered and dealt with appropriately, either incorporated into or dismissed in whatever comes from the service level study. And I can't wait to see it. And I'm glad to hear it's not 2 years away, that it's half that or less than half that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. And through you, just to put a fine point on it. So this is not a yes, it's not a no. It's to tell the people that have come forward that it's, we hear you. And to the mayor's words, let's see how it unfolds. Because there could well be other clubs and other types of recreational aspects that haven't been considered. The consultant isn't here to give us an opinion on whether this particular sport should be added. So I think just the point, hey, you know, we hear you, public. Thank you for coming forward. This is their forum. And, you know, news at 11.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to, do we need to have a resolution for that, or can we ask staff to be, like, will this group know now at this point? I think all of us are also trying to get our heads around what this level of service study is going to look like. And maybe I can just ask staff quickly. What is our next touch point? I think we've hired this consultant. Maybe you can just give us a quick, so we also are understanding what to expect.
Okay, Madam Chair. Yes, I can do that. I can tell you that I have met with the consultant. We've had our kickoff meeting. So they're busily putting together or formalizing their game plan in terms of how this is going to progress. We've already started the process of transferring copious quantities of documentation and data to them so that they can start the process of absorbing the information and begin to analyze it. Their schedule is a work in progress, and I have a meeting on Friday with them to discuss that. But I can tell you that there will be a number of workshops where they will come in here and they will present to you their findings relative to specific matters, so that they can share their analysis with you. There will be a process whereby they will come in and say to you, you know, here are the key performance indicators that we think adequately describe a given service, whatever that may be. And, you know, your comparators are at this level and you're up here or you're down here. So that you can start to understand where we stand relative to the industry and others within our comparator group. And you can start to make some decisions about what level of service do we want to provide to the community. All of this, of course, will be done in a very open and transparent way. The information will be shared with the public. There will be opportunities for the public to come in and express their views. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to make some decisions about what level of service do you choose to provide to the public, accepting the financial consequences that go along with that.
Okay, thank you. So I think what I'm wanting to make sure we all are feeling comfortable that there's going to be a public process, no different than any other, the other major initiatives we've gone under that will allow for clubs like this, the curling club and or others that we may not be even aware of right now to participate.
Identical, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kent?
Thank you, and through you. I guess my concern is that the arena's feasibility study, all this data came out, and I don't know how swimming got added in there because swimming is not an existing, apart from maybe what we do at the water, it got in there. Curling was omitted, as I understand, because it was not an existing process, something we do, activity we do today, or a service that we don't provide today. But my concern is that that sort of project is not, it's only closed in phase 1, but I want to make sure that in phase 2, curling gets proper treatment along with the other activities that are there. And I'm not worried about the level of service study. I'm actually focused on the arenas project where we've closed step 1 and it's not even there. It's not mentioned. It's nowhere in the document. There's all this planning for locations and things that could happen. And it isn't even part of the thought process. Swimming was though. So that's my concern. My concern is not level of service studies. That's maybe I'm missing something, but it just seems to be omitted. We don't seem to have a process for pulling it in and being, they weren't surveyed. I understand why they weren't surveyed, but I do think they deserve a proper audience as Councillor, whatever your name is. Mr. Purple and Pink over here. Anyway,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, and I think Director Becking, I see your hand on.
Madam Chair, that will happen in the fullness of time, as the lawyers love to say. Once we get past the point of deciding, are we in the arena business? You have, if you go back to the report that was presented to you earlier this morning, you have a variety of options that you need to consider. And those options will be considered through the level of service study. Once we get through that and you decide, obviously, that we're in the arena business, then the next logical question after that is, what should the arena look like and what should be included within it? And I think the appropriate time for engaging the curling clubs is at that point, because that's when you're going to start making decisions about location, about design, about what is planned to take place in that space. And it will evolve accordingly.
Thank you. Supplemental?
Just through you. To me, it feels like we actually went at these things in the reverse order. We probably should have done the service level study first and decide we're in the arenas business, and then go do the arena study based upon having made that decision that we're in the arenas business. So now we've done all this arenas work, and now we're going to go back and decide if we want to be in the business. Just a comment on process. Maybe I'm missing something, but I came into this after you've already started all these studies, so.
And I think, I don't want to, perhaps Director Becking, it's partly because we're talking about the arena feasibility study, but there have been other studies that have been undertaken to give us the appropriate data. Please help me if I'm over my skis, staff, on this one, but all of that information will then help feed into this level of service study. So if we could probably easily, we haven't seen the fire station one yet, but that's going to be the same idea, I think. So CAO Hammond.
Madam Chair, so it's important when we go through a level of service study to have facts in front of us so we can undertake evidence-based decision-making. If we didn't have the asset management plan telling us what the state of the assets are in. If we didn't have a future vision or detailed look at various structures, we would be making service level decisions in what I would refer to as a vacuum. We should expect quite an emotional response from the community when we go through this exercise. We've been anticipating that, which is why we've undertaken the level of detail in our analysis of what we own. So that when we have those conversations, so you may say, we'll have one arena per 1,000 people. So we'd end up with 5 arenas. Is the community prepared to pay the $150 million initially to build them? And that's probably on the light side. And then as Mr. Becking referred to this morning, there's always a capital legacy with these structures, right? Ongoing maintenance costs. And there's, we're not the only municipality in this boat. Every other municipality in the province of Ontario is going to have to be going through this exercise. So I'll leave it there, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No, so committee, I just want, I think at this point, what I'm hearing is that we're all getting a little bit more comfortable with what this level of service study, the timing of it, what we can expect from it. And perhaps I can just ask staff to to connect with the curling club to help the community also understand their opportunity to participate, in that process and how they can do so. Thank you. Moving on now to item 12C. And I believe this has been brought forward by Councillors Avitz and Roberts. So perhaps I can ask you, I think this was a follow-up from last month's discussion on the wharfs, and it was brought forward in that way. So I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, and through you. So again, yes, to your point around the Windermere discussions that we had, and of course, the transportation master plan, parking has always, parking around our township and around our water accesses has always been a concern of mine, certainly, and others around this table. And so I just thought that, in terms of sort of Councillor Roberts and I, as we had a number of discussions about it, that we wonder if we shouldn't be looking at other ways, that being a future speak to how we might, as a township, manage that water access better in a more modernistic approach, perhaps not so much to take the labor piece out of it, but I think we're going to continue to have, and we'll have more parking issues around those as we get more weight, more boats, more cars, and perhaps there are QR code, smartphone, you can park here and here's what you pay, and so that they're more of a remote, less onerous for the township systems, if you will. So that was our thought, and so we thought we would table it in this manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts, did you have anything to add or?
Exactly what he said. I don't
Okay.
need to say no more.
Okay, what I will do is I will read the resolution so that everybody's fully understanding what's on the table. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Whereas the current agreements for the operation of wharfs within the Township of Muskoka Lakes are expiring in 2025. And whereas committee is interested in exploring smart monitoring electronic docking solutions for the paid usage of wharfs, now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to bring back further information and potential solutions for consideration in the 2025 budget. Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? That passes. Thank you. Okay, item 12D, the district updates. So, Mr. Burry, I will start with you.
Thank you. So last month there's a joint meeting, which I'm going to let the mayor speak to because it's his housing project. And on the corporate and financial services side, I'll start with the good news first. The district is going to undertake a 2-year budget cycle. So looking at 2 years as opposed to just 1 year at a time. So a rolling 2-year, which I think is a terrific idea. We do it in the corporate world. except we might do 3 and 4 years. But 2 years is a really good start, and I'm glad to see that the district is doing that, and I commend them for that. The asset management work that's being done in the district is excellent. We spent a pretty fulsome discussion around fleet and fleet operations, which I think is really concerning, seeing as though we pick up, the better part of 40% of it. Replacement cost of the district fleet is $15 million. And they've got, kind of 4.3 years of average on road. The single biggest piece that concerns me is there's 113 gasoline vehicles and 30 diesel vehicles. These are all on-road vehicles. The average fuel consumption was 42.1 liters per 100 kilometers. 42, almost 42 and a half liters per 100 kilometers. Now, I have a F-150 and I do the same kind of hauling and things that we would expect from a municipal vehicle. And I get on average about 10. I talked to Director Becking, and between us, we couldn't figure out how you'd get it that high without a huge amount of idling or a significant amount of theft.
Okay, so
I'm
let's
just going to leave it there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's remember that
No,
we're sitting around this table.
So 42 liters per 100 kilometers. They drive 2.3 million kilometers. And this was all in the view of the district is going to, get some EVs and other to try and decarbonize the fleet. Then there was no contemplation of eliminating tailpipes. So I spoke up, and I am frustrated. Like, it's just status quo. Everyone gets a truck, and there's a lot of idling and a lot of driving. And I wonder as an upper tier municipality if it's really needed. So that's the questions I'll be continuing to ask.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelley? Oh, questions. Councillor Roberts, Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I've wondered to Councillor Burry, have they considered GPSs? Because I know the Region Appeal, when I worked for them, they actually put GPSs in contractor vehicles owned by them and for their fleet, to get a handle on their fleet. Has the district considered implementing GPSs on their vehicles?
Okay, thank you.
And if not, why not?
I'm not an expert in how the district is handling their fleet. We were given a fairly detailed baseline profile of the fleet. The operating expenses are almost $3 million a year, $2.7 million. I would think that staff would be looking at this. I'm not sure that staff had seen all of this before, and so I think, in all fairness, they need to be able to have some time to react to it, because there's some numbers here that someone ought to be woken up.
And just a follow-up question then, or a proposal or suggestion, through your role in that committee, can you suggest maybe that they consider that?
Already done.
Okay, good. I thought you wouldn't sleep at sleep. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa, did you have a question? Or do you want to? Okay, a comment?
Yes, they do have GPS vehicles, and in matter of fact, if they go over 100 kilometers an hour when it's not that area, they are noted very quickly. I would also, it's not a defense, but it is a reality that the trucks, much like Muskoka Lakes, have to travel far distances. So just to go over to Georgian Bay to pick up garbage, because they all have to be picked up differently than for instance, the service that you would get in Muskoka Lakes. I know we've had these conversations over the years, so it's been very interesting. I do want to say one of the things I really like about the district is when you need a vehicle, you sort of borrow a vehicle. There's not, not everybody is designated a vehicle. So if a staff member has to go to a wellness thing at such and such a location, they would book that vehicle. And I would like to have incorporated that type of service in the Township of Muskoka Lakes, especially when it comes to, I would just say our building department and other uses in planning, that we could have vehicles that could be borrowed out as opposed to. But you're right, there's a lot of issues around that whole thing. But again, so much driving, like going, you know, our district is huge, I'll just say that, so.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. It's for you. I have certainly witnessed Denali Chevy pickup trucks, GMC pickup trucks with 6.2 liter V8s in it with that logo on the side. And, you know, I continually shake my head when I see that because, you know, they are in the public interest, and that is $100,000 truck. And that's the person who's in it is simply going from place and whatever. It's on me for me to question, but I do like where Councillor Burry is going, and I appreciate, you know, the sentiment of eyes on. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Councillor Nishikawa, just because you were speaking, I was going to ask you to do your update, and then I'll come back to you, Mayor Kelley. Okay. Okay, Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Through you, we're spending a lot of money at Fairburn. We're spending a lot of money at the Pines. And we have a joint meeting with finance later this week, next week, I should say.
Okay.
I just suggest you check your schedule.
Thank you. Okay. Mayor Kelley.
Thank you. And through you, I'm going to just focus, as Councillor Burry suggested, on the joint meeting between the Housing Task Force, Public Works, and the Finance Committee. Essentially, basically, we've put a proposal together to develop and finance, we being the Housing Task Force, to develop and finance 3 different streams of relief to the affordability and attainability housing crisis. And the next stop was essentially to bring it to finance to make sure that the financial impact was well understood. Really, really high level, really quickly. There's actually quite a good report out that's available off the web, and I'm happy to steer anybody to it who wants to see it. The first stream is sort of what we call deepest need, and this really is to provide comfort and relief, usually on a short-term basis, to people who are either homeless or suffering from addictions or mental illnesses that keep them from adequately looking out for their own interests. There is a property that's been identified on Pine Street, which I think is probably going to be the landing place for a lot of that activity. It will be largely funded and owned by and managed by the district. The second area is the development of purpose-built rental market for attainable housing. There's some challenges here. There's a lot of funding available through federal and provincial sources. So whatever funding gets put up by the district will be more than matched, hopefully, with successful applications for funding from the other jurisdictions. But the essential thing here is working in partnership with existing developers to develop a basic level of attainable purpose-built rental accommodation. Challenges are keeping it attainable over time. There's a couple of different things to consider there. How do you avoid it becoming market priced after somebody's been in it for a year? The third issue, and the one that quite frankly I like the most, I mean, the others are absolute necessities. The one where I think we're pushing the envelope a little bit is we're developing what we call capacity building. We're looking at investing not just in the product, but in the process. We're looking at investing in things like different methods of manufacturing housing, i.e. manufactured housing, container housing, something that can be done quick, easy, that can accommodate, keep prices under control, that can hire, that can drive economic activity, that can be an attraction for people looking for work in the district. And that's just one touch. There's a whole bunch of other touches, but essentially there's a commitment of between 20 and $30 million. My guess is we will find a way to spend or invest all of the 30, probably be back again for more. And, but there is a huge need. It's a growing need. There's 700 and some odd 50, I think it is, units of housing that are needed right now for people who are waiting on a list. And that's not ownership. That's everything from people who are just trying to get into supportive housing because of their mental or addictive needs, to people who are trying to just crack the market for the first time. And with the support of our finance committee and good people like Councillor Burry, we'll get it done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa?
Mayor Kelley, could I ask you to switch topics, I guess? How's the OPP situation going? As in, can we expect better service in Muskoka Lakes this year?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There is a new services board. It's not called the Police Services Board. It's called something less than that. Detachment Services Board, I think it's called. I don't think I have yet been, but I'm about to be appointed to that board. We have an excellent relationship with the now confirmed permanent replacement detachment head, Wade Beebe. We have a very good relationship with him, personal relationship with him. And he has listened and not yet responded. He only just got his appointment just got announced, I think, in the last month. But yes, I mean, he's well aware of the fact that we feel we're paying considerably more than we're getting from the relationship, and that, you know, whatever the OPP needs are, need to be specifically tailored to our needs, seasonally, location wise, on water versus on the road, on the ground. We've even had discussions about walking. I know this sounds archaic, but walking the beat, parking the car and walking through town, having a higher visibility to local people in season as they walk around on sidewalks in Bala and Port Carling in particular. So I will say, yes, it will be better, but we're just a little early to have any kind of hard commitment from them.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much for those updates today. Community events. I know we have our calendar, but I just wanted to ask if there's any thoughts coming forward. Mayor Kelley?
It's not really a community event, but the next meeting of the Housing Task Force is in Port Carling. It is in the community center. If I'm not mistaken, it's the 26th. Does anybody know? I think it's the 26th of, I hope they booked it. Hope I wasn't supposed to. It's the 26th. So it's like Thursday, not of next month or next week, but the following week. It's not, we welcome anybody who wants to come in and listen and participate. It's not broadcast by Zoom, I don't think, or anything like that. But if you're interested, it's a good opportunity to learn a bit.
Thank you. Okay. Not seeing any other items, so I don't have closed. So I do have a resolution to adjourn, moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 11:42 a.m. Thank you, Councillor Burry. And the next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee be held on Wednesday, May 15th at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair electronically from the council chambers, municipal office in Port Carling, Ontario. All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried, and we will resume for council at 1 p.m. So that gives us a few extra minutes to go out for a walk if anybody wants to join later on. Take care.